Much, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to discuss Census 2020 challenges, outreach efforts, and the strategies we have employed to help San Mateo County maintain the highest self-response rate of any county in California. As she mentioned, my name is Megan Gosh, and I began working with the County of San Mateo back in January of 2018. So I'm going to start our story with how we began preparing for the 2020 census, knowing that there are going to be many challenges that we'd have to overcome. California is considered the hardest to count state in the entire nation. 72% of Californians belong to one or more hard to count or hard to reach groups, which traditionally includes non-citizens, renters, residents with limited English proficiency, and children under 5. In San Mateo County, there are census tracts that include these hard to reach populations in 13 out of 20 cities, as well as large unincorporated areas, and they're dispersed all over the county. So one of the significant challenges that we faced was the lack of affordable housing. And due to these skyrocketing housing costs, only 14% of households can afford a home. And the average rent of a studio apartment is $2,400. Because of this lack of affordable housing opportunities, many residents are living in non-traditional housing units. These include things such as converted garages, basements, sheds, or recreational vehicles that are parked on properties. These units often do not have an official U.S. Post Office address and therefore would not be included in the Census Bureau's master address file, and they would not receive a census questionnaire. So our first task was to review the Bureau's existing file in a process called LUCA, which is the Local Update of Census Addresses. It's the only opportunity a government has to review and update the Census Bureau's master address file. Using demographic information and working really closely with city planners and our local community-based organizations, we identified the areas around the county that were most likely to include high concentrations of these non-traditional housing units. And in partnership with our CBOs, we canvassed these areas to record the non-traditional housing units so that we could include it in the Census Bureau's master address file. We signed a confidentiality agreement with the Census Bureau and so did not share any of this information with any city or county government. And actually, I was the only one who had access to the data. Through this process, we identified almost 2,000 units around the county. So even if conservatively we say 2 people per unit, that would equate to a potential loss of $4 million a year for 10 years of federal funding if those individuals were not counted. So in addition to historically hard to count or reach populations, this decennial census came with other challenges, including the fact that the 2020 census was moving primarily online. And that means that 88% of our county received an invitation to participate online, which raises concerns about data privacy, security, digital access, and literacy. And there's a fear and lack of trust in the federal government and concerns about this data privacy, as well as the attempt to add the citizenship question. Although unsuccessful, it caused significant anxiety among our immigrant communities. It was estimated that there would only be a 60% self-response rate in the 2020 census, which would mean potentially a loss of billions of dollars of federal funds to California. We knew as county employees, we're not going to be able to convince all residents to participate in the census. The populations who are the hardest to reach would need trusted messengers from their own communities to share this information. We needed strong partnerships with our community-based organizations as well as volunteers to help us reach all of our residents. We are thankful for the support of our County Board of Supervisors and the County Manager, and we were able to allocate almost $1.3 million through a series of requests for proposals. For those to be on-the-ground trusted messengers, we needed to assure a complete and accurate count of all residents. Using demographic, geography, and organizational coverage information, we divided the county into 8 regions, and then selected organizations in each of those regions to be part of a community action team. We have continually utilized census data, plus the local knowledge of our partners, to assist in developing our outreach strategies. Our goal, in addition to receiving a complete and accurate count, was to design a structure that would allow for continued civic engagement across all levels. We have census ambassador volunteers who will continue to be resources and civic leaders in their communities, and we've also increased the capacity for outreach and organizing for our grassroots local community leaders. Thrive, the Alliance for Nonprofits, has been instrumental in coordinating activities across the county by working with each of our action teams. We hold regional meetings once a month, and during these meetings, we drill down to the census tract, and we look at what outreach efforts are successful, what are not successful, what are the messages that are resonating with their local communities, and then we share these ideas and strategies across other regions as well. And it's working. As of June 28th, San Mateo County, for the 10th week in a row, is leading the state in self-response rates. We are currently at 72.8. The state is at 62.9, and the nation is at 61.8. We're only 0.4% behind our final 2010 self-response rate. And what a self-response rate means if you turn in your census questionnaire either by phone, by mail, or online. Starting August 11th, the Census Bureau will be going door to door as part of the non-response follow-up, where they're asking you to fill out your forms. So one really cool thing about having the ability to respond online is we have access to these daily updates of response rates. And we can see how many of people who responded have done so online versus mailing or calling in. And we're mapping and analyzing all this information at a census tract level. And doing this has shown us some really interesting things. For example, even though we know East Palo Alto has access to broadband, their internet response rates are lower than we would have expected. And that tells us that there's other things that are going on in these areas, like folks aren't comfortable using the internet, or they don't have trust providing their information online. We can use this information to pivot our outreach strategies accordingly. I won't go into too much detail about that because I want our partners to be able to talk about what they're doing, but having the ability to analyze these daily results and looking at demographic and geographic information has been instrumental in our outreach and success countywide.